With the new Dungeon Master's Guide, we have the ability to double our DPR. How so? Well, let's take a look. Welcome to Pack Tactics, where hiding gives you advantage. Let's take a look at Thief Rogue, Fast Hands. This is from the 2024 Player's Handbook. It says as a bonus action, you can do one of the following. The thing we care about is use an object. Take the utilize action or take the magic action to use a magic item that requires that action. While I've seen people disagree with the following reading, I think most people agree that use an object part of this feature allows Thief Rogue to cast spells through an item as a bonus action when they normally require an action. The DMG says spells cast from items. Some magical items allow the user to cast a spell from the item. The spell is cast at the lowest possible spell and caster level, doesn't expend any of the user's spell slots, and requires no components unless the item's description notes otherwise. The spell uses its normal casting time, range, and duration, and the user of the item must concentrate if the spell requires concentration. Many items, such as potions, bypass casting of a spell and confer the spell's effects with its usual duration. Certain items make exceptions to these rules, changing the casting time, duration, or other parts of a spell. A magic item may require the user to use their own spellcasting ability when casting a spell from the item. If the user has more than one spellcasting ability, the user chooses which one to use with the item. If the user doesn't have a spellcasting ability, their spellcasting ability modifier is 0 for the item, and the user's proficiency bonus applies. So let's say we have a Wand of Fear. This allows us to cast Command or Fear, which has a casting time of an action. Therefore, you require a magic action to cast the spells. This means that because of use an object, we can cast the item as a bonus action, as using the item requires a magic action. This has an interesting interaction with one spell specifically, True Strike. But Koopal, True Strike sucks! Not anymore, Gator. We're in the future. True Strike now grants an improved attack rather than giving you advantage on your next attack. Of course, this requires an action, and if we can find an item that allows us to cast a spell, we can get an extra attack as a bonus action. If we can achieve this, we can do something similar to as something I described in my War Cleric video. You can ready your action to attack off turn, then use your bonus action to cast True Strike and attack right away. Because you're attacking on 2 different turns, you can sneak attack on both. You're doubling your DPR when something grants you the ability to attack as a bonus action. This combo takes off especially once you get to level 17 with Thief's Reflexes, which allows you to double your double DPR. This is quadruple the power. Luckily, the new DMG even came up with an item that allows you to cast True Strike. One example is Enspelled Weapon. If you want a cantrip, you need at least the uncommon version. With it, you can expend charges to cast predetermined spells of certain schools, including divination like True Strike. Because this is an uncommon item, you can craft it for only 200 gold, and at most 10 days of work. That time is halved if somebody helps you. That could be a teammate with the right proficiencies, or a hireling with the right proficiencies. This is awesome. You can do this in no time in most campaigns. You can also do it with Enspelled Staff, but it doesn't work as well as Weapon. But Kobold, what are the downsides to the Enspelled items? There are multiple problems with Enspelled True Strike. 1. True Strike says you attack with the weapon used in the spell's casting. The item makes it so the spell requires no material components. So the usual definition of this would mean you attack with nothing. However, I think you can argue that if you cast the spell with a weapon, you can say that it is used in the spell's casting. If you're using an Enspelled Staff, it means you must make a melee attack, which might not be what you're looking for. 2. Enspelled items modify the attack bonus used for the spell/attack. You're not using your dexterity or anything for an attack roll. That means means Elven Accuracy, for example, does not apply. I do think you can add your spellcasting ability modifier to damage rolls, as the item doesn't replace that, which to me indicates you can use your own. 3. The DMG says the spell is cast at the lowest possible spell and caster level. That means you'll never gain access to the improved damage from True Strike at later levels. This will never scale up. Of course, you're still gaining an extra attack potentially with sneak attack damage, but this does make the damage worse. And 4. If you are limited to only the Enspelled weapon, you run out after 6 additional attacks, and you would need to spend quite some time to swap in a new Enspelled weapon, as you can only be attuned to one at a time. It is absolutely possible, but maybe through actual play, it's unlikely. So here's what I think is a better alternative. Bracers of Flying Daggers, a rare item. You only require one of these rather than multiple like in spelled weapons. So get an assistance from your party member or hireling, and get it ASAP as soon as you get the money for it. If you get somebody to help you, it takes 25 days. Here's what the item does. This armband appears to have thin daggers strapped to it. As an action, you can pull up to 2 magic daggers from the bracer and immediately hurl them, making a ranged attack with each dagger. A dagger vanishes if you don't hurl it right away, and the daggers disappear right after they hit or miss. The bracer never runs out of daggers. So while this is neither explicitly a utilize or a magic action, it is an older item. The rules definition of utilize action on page 377 says, you normally interact with an object while doing something else, such as when you draw a sword as part of the attack action. When an object requires an action for its use, you take the utilize action. It's quite clear that the bracer requires an action for its use, and thus you take the utilize action. As it's also a magic item, use an object applies. Like before, we can take advantage of this with Thief Rogue, being able to get off 2 sneak attacks in one round, then at endgame we can get 4. However, making a build with this item is a bit tough. While you do make a ranged weapon attack, you don't use the attack action or use a ranged weapon, which excludes a lot of positive feats and other options from your playstyle. Throw weapon fighting works, but because you don't make that many attacks, it doesn't add a whole lot. Sharpshooter got changed so that only the bypass cover part works with daggers. So while this is beneficial, it's not perfect either. The damage numbers here aren't bad, but I can imagine that there is a better way to use the basic principles of this strategy. I'm curious what you guys think. Are there any items that I've missed out on? I want to know them. I want that DPR higher. That's everything I wanted to share today about doubling your DPR. End of video. Next video, we're gonna look at the strongest subclass in D&D 2024. It's like a 20-minute long video. It's super long. Anyways, I hope I earned a like, comment, and a subscription. If you really want to support me, maybe donate to Patreon. That would be super nice of you. I'll reward you with early videos. Thank you for watching, everyone. Bye-bye!